right, people are starting to join. So whenever you're ready to get started, we can go ahead and start.
I thought we'd start with just a brief introductions because Spencer, we have two new members on the committee and one returning member and also Jen Nelson. So I thought we would just start with introductions. Spencer, you of course know me. I'm Joe Morlock, superintendent. And then we'll just go around the bend. So we'll start with Trevor. You're next on my screen.
Yeah, I'm Trevor DeHart, born and raised in Newberg, and yeah, raising my family here. 3 girls, 1 boy, wife of 25 years.
Great. And then Brian, you're next on my screen.
Hi, I'm Brian. I've been on the school board since 2019.
All right. And Rebecca?
Rebecca Piros. I have been on the school board since 2018. Former Newberg school employee.
Great. And returning policy committee member.
Yes. Yes.
And then Jen?
Yes, I am the Newberg's Board of Directors Board Secretary. I've been resident in Newberg and a parent to 3 kids in the district for several years.
Okay. So today's, unless Trevor, Brian, or Rebecca, you want to focus on ones, I'm assuming we're going to work on the things that we'd put in the packet, which was the either ensuring safe environments to learn, which you had provided to me, or it may fit within, I don't know if it's political figures or if it is, there's also a couple other ones we put in here, the materials distribution. There's also, is there a GBG as well, Spencer, where it fits into political speech?
My understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, was that the ensuring safe environments to learn would go into GBG. Oh, it was GBC. Yeah, I can pull up GBG as well.
The reason that I wanted to talk about GBG was that it's about staff participation in political activities. It may fit better than in ethics, because the ethics is more about financial gain by people in the district, or I think nepotism is in there too, about hiring or supervising family members and what have you. So I thought that maybe it may fit better, and that's something we can. Oh, I'm getting a little reverb here too.
Yeah, and I would concur with George or Joe. Obviously, you can put it anywhere you'd like. You could create a separate policy if you wanted. But GBC really comes from the Oregon ethics laws, which focus on a financial benefit to the employee, similar to the laws that apply to you as board members. So I think GBG is probably a more natural place for it. But if you have a reason to keep it in, put it in GBC, we certainly could do that.
So GBG is in the packet at the end, page 15. Yeah. Go ahead.
Spencer, have you had a chance to review the suggestions? And what are there ORSs that can, because that wasn't listed in the suggestions and the legal notes that aren't normally in our policies?
So we could add some legal references that could go. Some of the same ones from GBG would probably apply. We could, include a few court cases that would help support this added language. So, the legal references, we can put those together. And oftentimes the legal references, they're not the most critical part of the policy. The intent of including those in the policy is to give any reader a good direction if they're going to start researching or they're trying to find the background on any of these policies. So we would certainly put together legal references that help support this. There's a few primary court cases out of the 9th Circuit that I would definitely want to include. But we can put those together for sure.
Has this gone to the legal team that we use?
It's come to me, and I've talked to a couple, well, one other attorney. I just got it yesterday, so we're still trying to have some conversations about what it would mean. So I've reviewed it. I do have some questions, some concerns, some considerations to think about with it. It's an area that attorneys are going to disagree on, judges are going to disagree on, circuits, throughout the country are going to disagree on a little bit. There's a few court cases that are definitely that support this policy. One in particular out of California, which is the Ninth Circuit, which is good because that's our circuit. I haven't had a chance to, really dig in, to all of the cases that cite that and really figure out if there's stuff in there that we'd want to, really be concerned about. So I've had a chance to somewhat.
Sorry, Spencer, maybe I missed it. What do you do for the OSBA?
I'm the director of policy.
Okay.
Here
And
at
then
OSBA.
I guess in the best interest of the people who've called in, we're talking about, what are we talking about, the legal review? Do we need to read that so the public's aware? Or?
So before you adopt any policy, we recommend that it go through legal review, whether that's us at OSBA, whether that's a different attorney, whoever it is, but we recommend that it go through a legal review. I don't know, I've heard that you had an attorney involved in developing it, and if that's the legal review that you want and you're satisfied with that, that's definitely, you could go ahead and adopt this without it going through anything else. But we recommend that there be some sort of legal review prior to adoption. Yeah.
So what are we talking about, Joe? It seems like we kind of put the cart before the horse, I guess. Are we talking about the policy that Tyler Smith, the attorney, had sent, or what are we talking about?
So yes, we're talking about the language he sent, because what was sent was more of a proclamation and not necessarily in the format of a policy that we would normally adopt. And so if you look, which is why we included several other policies that may be related to it. I specifically included the sample GBG because I want to make sure that when we can, if you want to take the language from what Tyler sent and then try to craft it into policy, because it's really it's challenging here to put this one into practice. I want to make sure that we are covering all the bases, enforcement mechanism, what that looks like, go through each one of the lines in here and make sure that those fit. So like the things that are all under whereas are not normally things we would need to include, right? That's more of a proclamation kind of thing. But starting down below the therefore, which is on the second page, which would be page 4 of the packet.
Yeah, I'm gonna pull that up real quick.
Yeah, where you have ensuring safe environments to learn. That's why we're trying to figure out if it fits within a better framework rather than this.
Yeah, I think the whereas part wasn't meant to be included. Yeah, I think in the policy part meant to be included. Okay, so you're looking at which part, Joe? The 4th paragraph? So you're looking at which part?
I'm looking at the second page.
Yep.
Right. So where it starts below the therefore thing. And it says ensuring safe environments to learn. So I'm looking at the language below that, maybe the parts that you'd want to put into a policy. And I'm not suggesting that you put it in the ethics policy, because it doesn't really fit there, just because the ethics policy is written from the ethics rules and laws, but that it may fit better under a policy we don't yet have, which is the staff participation in political activities, which is GBG. And so is there a way to look at GBG and see which parts of the language that Ty provided us to then see if it fits within this? Do we add it to? Do we, munge them together in some way?
Joe, may I interrupt for one moment? Can I have everyone I don't know, there's some sort of feedback issue going on. And I don't know if that's because everyone's microphones are on at the same time and we're listening to each other. We might need to turn off microphones when we're not speaking. Thank you.
Let's test the audio now. Is this working better?
Yeah.
Okay, good. I'm not hearing myself. That's good.
So generally speaking, I like what I see in GBD, and I would be comfortable taking the body of the policy text that Tyler drafted and plugging that in to the end of GBG. I'll include the exceptions that he called out in there as well. So I would move that we plug the main body of the ensuring safe environments to learn policy drafted by Tyler Smith into the body of GBD.
That we don't vote on it.
So we can do this effectively. I think we should probably elect our committee officers because we haven't done that yet. That's supposed to be the first thing you do when you form a new committee. So how about we do nominations for committee chair? Does anyone have any nominations for committee chair? You're muted, Trevor.
I nominate Director Shannon.
Are there any additional nominations?
I would nominate myself.
Okay, so any additional nominations?
There's no secondings.
There's no seconding in nomination process. So there are two nominations. We will vote on them in order. The first nomination is for Director Shannon. All in favor of Director Shannon to be chair of the policy committee, raise your hand. The yeses are Shannon and DeHart. The nomination passes.
Well,
So
can I vote?
That's not how nominations work. The first person to get enough votes gets the chair. So the next position is for vice chair. Are there any nominations for vice chair?
Sorry, point of order, Brian. I think she's asking if you can call for the no votes. I didn't get those.
Yeah.
No votes are not needed for nominations. It's simply how many, the first person to get a majority of yes votes gets the position.
Okay.
Are there nominations for vice chair? I'll nominate Trevor DeHart for vice chair.
I nominate myself.
Okay. Are there any additional nominations? In that case, I will declare nominations closed. The first nomination is for Trevor DeHart. Trevor, you're willing to serve?
I would rather pass.
So are you
since I'm so new to this, so I'm not going to be voting for myself. So
are you declining the nomination?
I am.
Okay. So there is one nomination for Director Piros to be vice chair. All those in favor of the nomination? All right. Director Piros is vice chair.
Who voted?
It was unanimous.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So moving along, I made a motion to plug the language on Safe Schools Amendment. Sorry, let me make sure I'm reading the right. The main body of the Ensuring Safe Environments to Learn policy drafted by Tyler Smith into the language of policy GB to be appended at the end. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Okay. The motion has been seconded. Is there any discussion?
Yes, I don't think that we should be voting on the policy until it's really formatted the way we generally format it. And I have questions about the wording. One wording is the controversy. How do you determine controversy? I find the dinosaurs to be controversial. I find the Oregon State and the Oregon Ducks flags controversial. I find many things controversial. And I also do not agree with the statement that it says, if you have controversy, you go to the district employee that you do it. And then the next stage is that there is a chance to go anonymously to the superintendent, the supervisor. I don't feel that's right, that it should be anonymous.
So I guess what I would say is we are in the process of formatting it. That's what the amendment is for, is we're plugging into the policy language GBG. And if once we do that, you're free to offer amendments as well, Director Piros. So is there any additional discussion?
So
Yeah, oh, sorry, go ahead, Rebecca.
So I'm trying to figure out, so this is an amendment, this is to accept your plugging this in, and then afterwards we have to amend it?
No, the motion is to amend. The motion is to amend policy language GBG.
Okay, but if you don't like what you want to amend it to, when do I get a chance to state what changes?
Well, so if you don't want to plug in that language to GBG, you can vote against this amendment. And then you can offer additional amendments, whether or not this motion passes.
Are we able to put GBG up online? I'm trying to find that policy.
It's
Under
in
the
your
policy
packet.
section.
It's actually on,
Page-
we don't have the policy currently. So it's a sample policy at the end of the packet that Jen sent out all the way at the bottom, the very last page.
Page 15. Jen, would you mind, for Rebecca's sake, would you mind reading that page for her?
That, go ahead. I've read it.
Okay. I'm just trying to be accommodating. All right.
I would appreciate it if you could read it with the amendment. Is that possible?
Yeah, I think that I agree with Rebecca. I think for transparency's sake and the people who are calling in, I think we need to read what it is we're considering here. I don't know how many people in the public are familiar with it.
Yeah, so that's fine. I can read it, and you'll have to give me a second to jump between pages when I get to the end of the first part. So this is policy GBG, staff participation in political activities. Employees may exercise their right to participate fully in the affairs of public interest on a local, county, state, and national level on the same basis as any community community member in a comparable position in public or private employment and within the law. All district employees are privileged within the limitations imposed by state and federal laws and regulations to choose any side of a particular issue and to support their viewpoints as they desire to vote, discussion, or persuading others. Such discussion and persuasion, however, will not be carried on during the performance of district duties except in open discussion during classroom lessons that consider various candidates for particular office or various sides of a particular political or civil issue. Personal and not to be interpreted as the district's official viewpoint. No employee will use district facilities, equipment, or supplies in connection with his or her political activities, nor will he or she use any time during the workday for such political activities. And then with the amendment line, it would continue. Ensuring safe environments to learn. No district employee shall, while acting within the scope of their employment, either during school hours or inside of the physical area of responsibility at a school, such as classroom, meeting room, desk area, hang, post, erect, or otherwise display, hereafter display, any posters, signs, flags, banners, pictures, or other digital or physical image that depicts support or opposition relating to a political, quasi-political, or controversial topic. For purposes of this policy, a controversial topic shall be defined as one that a professional educator could reasonably understand to have students on more than one side of said issue. For purposes of this policy, a political or quasi-political topic includes contemporary issues being debated in the local, state, or national political climate. Any person concerned with a particular display should first notify the district employee believed to be responsible for the display. Alternatively, the concerned person may anonymously file a complaint with a supervisor, school principal, or the principal's designee pursuant to district policy. Notes and exceptions. Policy does not restrict in any way students' First Amendment rights, nor change policy IB or IGAC. This policy does not restrict in any way district employees' First Amendment rights when not speaking in their official capacity, nor while on the job, or if they are not using a forum provided exclusively to them as an employee, or otherwise speaking on behalf of the district. This policy does not limit nor apply to communications nor the free exchange of ideas during the course of approved educational events or exploration of approved curriculum. Official district billboards in school offices and union materials covered by collective bargaining agreements are expressly exempt from this policy. The flag of the United States of America and the state of Oregon are not prohibited by this policy. That's the amended language. Any additional discussion before we vote on the amendment?
Well, can we
Hearing none,
strike?
I will go ahead and call for the vote.
Wait,
All those in
wait.
favor of the amendment,
Wait,
raise your hand.
wait.
Relax,
Brian,
Rebecca,
you
relax.
asked for discussion.
I asked for discussion. I heard none. I said hearing none. I'll call
Well,
for the-
okay, I was not able to get across that I have real concern about that anonymous filing. That is not, if we have a complaint, we need to know who it's from and that we can follow up with that person.
Okay, well, you can propose to amend it further after we vote on this
Why-
amendment, but we need to get this motion dealt with, and then you can make additional motions.
All right.
So I'm going to call for the vote on this particular amendment. All those in favor of the amendment signify yes by raising your hand. All those opposed. The yeses are Shannon and DeHart. The noes are Piros. So the amendment passes. So we're now dealing with amended policy GBG.
I would like to make an amendment to that policy.
State your amendment.
I would like to strike the line about filling in an anonymous complaint to the direct supervisor, but to follow the normal complaint process as stated in policy.
So Joe, before I call for a second, I am curious, how does the district deal with anonymous complaints about any other topic?
We generally don't, unless they are of a very egregious nature based upon something that may have happened. So we do have a anonymous thing when students feel threatened, it's safe to tell. But in this case, we always have them follow the procedure. We have two things in place. One, we have a complaint procedure that's in policy and in law. And secondly, we also have those things within the contracts for both of our associations. And so we follow that process. So we generally don't, we get some anonymous complaints. The problem with anonymous complaints is that basically anybody could say anything about anyone, and then we would be chasing down things that are most likely untrue. So only when it comes down to very dire possibilities of student health or safety, then we may look at that. But other than that, we don't really follow up on anonymous complaints because we have a complaint process. If we get one from somebody that happens to have a return email address, we will point them in the direction of the board policy around complaint procedure. So they'll follow that process.
And that complaint procedure doesn't give an option for anonymously filing a complaint.
That's correct, because within the CBAs also of both of our associations, the employee does have the right to know who has complained about them or against them.
Okay, I'm on the fence about this amendment, but I will second it for the sake of further discussion. So the motion has been seconded. So Director Piros, if you want to kick us off on further discussion.
Well, I feel that we should reflect policy and practices that like Joe said, anonymously, we need to be able to contact a person for more details and to be able to assure them that we've looked into it. But if it's just an anonymous thing, there's no follow-up possible. And if you're going to complain, you should be able to state your name and what, like he said too about the unions have it that they have the right to know who complained.
Is the idea that some, I guess you've already said this, but the idea is that some individuals would be have fear of retribution as a complaint's issued to maybe the person who's the complaint is waged against. In those instances, is a policy BBAA that covers the individual's complaints and the processes.
Could you repeat the policy?
I thought it was BBAA. Let me see if I can pull it up.
That's about board members' authority and responsibilities.
We have a non-retribution policy.
Authority and responsibilities.
So there was something I had read a while back on individual complaint process. Oh yeah, that's not.
So there is an AR for GBNA. That's about various complaints about hazing and intimidation, things of that nature.
I know we have a policy about no retaliation and no retribution. Maybe Spencer knows what policy it is.
For the complaints, you should be looking at either KL or JFH, or the two of them. So JFH KL or KL JFH. Those are the standard complaint procedures.
Yeah.
And there are specific legal references to those because we've been directed about how many of those.
It does.
Say again.
So under the current AR for GBNA-AR, it does allow for anonymous complaints.
That's correct. That's that's about sexual harassment. So JBA and GBN
Well,
are both sex.
it's not just for sexual harassment. It's for hazing, harassment, intimidation, menacing,
Mhm.
or acts
Right.
of sex,
Right.
which,
So those are under harassment.
right. And I think, at least an argument could be made that what we are dealing with is potentially a form of intimidation, right? And that is one of the things called there.
That, I think that's a far, I don't agree with that.
So what are we talking about specifically about the complaint? Is it a complaint with regards to the policy that we're looking at here, or?
Yeah,
The motion, as I understand, is to strike the word anonymously from the language that is contained under the, let me switch pages, under the ensuring safe environments to learn language. The third paragraph, alternatively, the concerned person may anonymously file a complaint with the supervisor, school principal, or the principal's designee pursuant to district policy. And Director Piros has moved to strike the word anonymously. Which, if that was struck, Joe, that language would comport with our other policies around complaint procedures and whatnot, right?
Correct.
I have mixed feelings on this one because on the one hand, I do think that a student may feel less comfortable complaining if they can't do it anonymously. And I don't think it necessarily would prevent district staff from properly investigating a complaint of this nature, because the complaint is, hey, this sign is up in this office. So I don't really understand how that would be either abridging the rights of the person who is, potentially violating this policy. Because it really is a question of, are they displaying the thing or not?
if they find it controversial.
I would say I think I support this amendment because in order to allow for the proper appeals process on any determination, we can't really have that if the complaints are anonymous.
Right.
Trevor, do you have any thoughts on that?
I was just reading that. No, I'm fine with that. If they don't feel comfortable, voicing the concern to the individual who they feel has committed the infraction, then they can go, I guess, up the chain, as we like to say in the military. Is there any reason, I see it goes up to principal. I believe that some of our policies go up to the superintendent or the board itself in some instances.
Only if they're not resolved at the lower level. So you always start at the lowest level of
Right.
resolution. So generally with the person's supervisor and then their supervisor and on up. So back to chain of command, you always start at the lowest level. So if they're uncomfortable speaking directly with the staff member, then they would go to the next level. So if it were at a principal's level, they would go to the principal's supervisor and then beyond that. So that's
right. And I think our other policies kind of cover that, what we were saying before, kind of
correct.
augments.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, there are 4 levels, which was changed a couple of years ago. I think via Len Spencer can remind me, but the law did change. We used to have about a 6-step thing, and we've collapsed those to 4. And that was part of a change in Oregon law.
Okay. Yeah, I'm fine with that. So we want to strike that.
Okay. Is there any further discussion? If not, I will call for the vote. All in favor of Director Piros' motion to strike the word anonymously from the third paragraph of the ensuring safe environments to learn language, raise your hand. And the motion passes unanimously. All right. Spencer, do you have anything to add to this conversation? Any concerns that you see from your point of view?
Some of them have been brought up, but a few things. I think, practically speaking, controversial is difficult, and I don't have a better word to use instead. I think no matter what the standard is, it's going to be difficult here. Statutorily, we have a prohibition on campaigns. Well, that one's really easy because there's a very clear definition of campaign. I think there are a lot of things that may be considered controversial. Things like state testing, opting out for state testing, FAFSA information. Those are technically things that are being debated on the local and national front. So are they considered quasi-political? And as time goes on, those definitions might change. But anytime that there's the potential for different administrators to handle things differently, it may run into a viewpoint discrimination claim. So being aware of that.
Of course, controversial appears in your model GBG policy.
Agreed. That's a policy that we're working on changes to and updates. A lot of districts take the model and make adjustments to it for what fits their district the best. I don't have a perfect word. And it is a difficult one across the state and across the country, as far as what is allowed, what isn't. So yes, it isn't our sample. Another area that can come up, does the same standard apply if something is directly from the curriculum? So I know bullet point number 3 at the bottom talked about curricular issues, but it's more in, let me look at it, more in communications. And I would consider a display to be part of a communication, or at least at sometimes a display would be part of a communication. Let's say a teacher has something hanging on the wall that comes directly from the state standards for a particular subject. Is it still, if it's controversial, even though it's part of the standards, does that need to be removed? So I think that's just something to consider. I would consider adding POW flags and Native American flags because there are times where you may be required to display those. So again, there may be controversy there, but you're still required in certain instances to display those. So I would consider including those.
Do you have an example of when we're required to display those?
So if a Native American tribe requests that it be displayed, it generally wouldn't be in an individual classroom. It's actually up to the district as far as where that would be displayed. And in most instances, I don't think it would be in a classroom. I guess the exception might be a PE classroom in the gym. Maybe you would display it there. But if a local tribe requests, and I can get you the actual statute on that. I don't know that it has to be a local tribe. I'll have to look at that. But if the Native American tribe requests, you have to display that in some way in your school. And then the POW flags are, if it depends on when the building was built and what the existing flag structure is. The way the law was written, it doesn't require you to, put up a third flagpole or, make any physical changes. But if your current setup allows for a third flag to be displayed, then that flag would be displayed in addition to the United States and the state of Oregon flags.
And that would be on the main school flagpole, not in the classroom.
Yeah, that would, generally not in the classroom, but it could have impacts on this policy.
Okay.
And there we talked a little bit at the beginning, governing displays. There are different court cases. I haven't had a chance to explore all those court cases fully. There could be concerns, so I can continue to look at that and I can report back to you on that if you'd like.
Sure.
Yeah, and Spencer, is this unique? I guess I've read other instances where school districts have adopted similar policies. What about throughout Oregon?
It's not unique to have a policy. I think the definition of controversial is a little, includes more than what we've seen in other districts in Oregon. A lot of districts have a version of GBG. A lot of districts use it really solely as a campaign speech, to remind staff members that they're not allowed to do any campaign work on district time. Some, keep it at the political, but political again is another word that, even though there are definitions in the law, the term political can be subjective. And so a lot of districts have something like that, but I think where yours is different is I think the definition of controversial expands the scope of the policy.
So I'll move that we recommend this policy GBG as amended to the board for adoption. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Okay.
I feel that it's too limiting, and it's I feel that not too limiting but too broad. And Joe's going to be, we don't have any what's the process of dealing with these issues? Joe will have to make an AR to work through that. And I don't feel we should adopt it until we know what the AR is.
Well, he can't draft an AR without knowing what the policy that we're proposing is. So he needs the policy to draft the AR. So that would be an argument against ever passing any policy. So I'm sure Joe can work with the language that, now that we've amended it and he knows what he's working with, to draft an AR. And we still have the first reading at the board level and the second reading to pass it. And of course, members will be able to amend it there as well. And I'm sure Spencer can, continue his research, and any concerns that he has can be addressed at those levels as well. So I don't find that to be a compelling argument for not proceeding forward with this policy.
I think one of the challenges of developing an AR will be that second paragraph about students on more than one side of said issue. So I think that's something that I think as a board, you'll have to discuss that one, because that one's going to be a challenge for us to enforce. So just kind of putting that on your radar for the next meeting.
Is there any additional discussion before we vote? All right, hearing none, I will go and call for the vote. All those in favor of recommending the policy for adoption to the board, please raise your hand. All those opposed? The yeses are Shannon and DeHart. The noes are Piros. And the motion is adopted. All right, I think that's all we had for this meeting, right?
That's correct. I wanted to dedicate all this time depending upon, I didn't know how long we would take today. So I wanted to make sure we were focused on just this one. We have about another, I don't know, 100 or 150 policies to get through. So we will get those scheduled for our next meeting when we can develop a regular schedule for the policy committee to meet. So I'll loop you in. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were done. Go ahead.
We'll get a regular meeting on because we have a lot of policies to get through. So I want us to be able to have a kind of a regular cadence. I know how people's schedules are. So I want to make sure that we get that in a scheduled time frame that makes sense that we can now count on, because it's very busy. So I want to make sure that we get those on the calendar and scheduled.
And are we reviewing every policy, or what are we going to be looking at?
My suggestion would be that we re-review the policies that we went through with the former board and Spencer, ones that did not get adopted at the end of the last session of the board, and start with those because those are closer. I know we have probably some quarterly changes that have already happened to some of those that we reviewed. But to review the ones that we've already made some changes and recommendations to first, and then loop back around. Every quarter, we do get from OSBA suggested changes and things as laws change or other things that come up, which we would get back into. But I would suggest at least trying to get through some of the suggested changes from prior, because a lot of that work's sort of been done, and many of them are minutia things that we could probably get through fairly quickly. But I would suggest starting there, and then getting into probably going back around and making sure there are any others that we've missed, getting into the quarterly updates so we can get into a regular cadence later on in the spring if we're able to get through those before that.
And do we, Joe, do we have those proposed amendments to the policies that could be sent out?
Yeah, we'll go back through.
Review.
Yeah, we'll go back through and collect them because there are many of them, and so we'll connect with Spencer and the folks at OSBA to figure out where we are in the process, and then gather those up and then get them out to you so you'll have plenty of time to review them, because there are a lot, and like I said, many of them, and you'll see the strike throughs and things of that nature. You'll see all that kind of stuff in there, so you can kind of see where we are.
And then does that also reference, I guess, the reason, the law, or what that is driving it?
The changes?
Right. In other words, I thought you said some different policies come down from OSBA, the state, wherever the source could be. Those proposed amendments, do they reference, I guess, what the policy change was and where it was coming from, or recommended policy changes?
No, generally the policy changes will, down at the bottom, as you saw in a few of the policies that are in the packet today, they'll have some references in general, but they may not reference every single change that gets made. Often, when there's a significant change, we'll bring a policy that's just written new rather than having 74,000 strikeouts and trying to read through that. So sometimes those will come in. And that's when Spencer explains to all of us on this committee, here's kind of where these major changes came from, because they often do, when there are major shifts in policy, it's generally because laws have changed in a fairly significant way that impact the policies we have on the books. So the other ones are smaller changes, and sometimes they're in the law and sometimes they're just phrases that don't make sense. Like we had stuff like "no child left behind." Well, we probably should take that out since that's not a thing anymore. So we've, some of that's just some language cleanup because those policies had not been reviewed for a long time, which is why we engaged that process. I think we had policies from 2007 that haven't been reviewed yet in a while. So that's why we're trying to go through all of them and update them at least to the current state.
Okay, thanks, Joe.
Yeah.
Are we going to try for 2-hour meetings like we did before?
I think we probably should start there at the beginning. And if we decide we're tired out and want to finish early, then you're always welcome to cut us off. But I think we probably should, it would be my recommendation that we get some of these out of the stream so we can move on to the other ones, because there are still plenty more work to be done on the quarterly updates that have come out since then.
All right. Anything else anyone have to discuss before we adjourn? All right. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, thanks, everyone.
Thanks. Good to see you, Spencer. Thanks for joining us.